Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us at the SAIEE Entrepreneurship and Innovation Chapter launch. Today, our topic is also discussing innovation as a catalyst to revolutionize Africa. Before we start, just a few webinar considerations. Attendees are reminded to ensure the volume is turned up on their device. Ensure you have a stable internet connection. This will ensure the streaming and audio will run smoothly. Attendees can ask questions via the questions panel located within the GoToWebinar control panel. By default, the control panel is located on the right-hand side of your screen. The chat function is reserved for webinar organizers and panelists to communicate with attendees. Attendees will not be able to chat with each other, however, are encouraged to ask questions. A recording of the presentations will be made available on the SAIEE YouTube channel, SAIEE TV, and the recording will also be made available on the SAIEE website under the events drop-down menu in the section past events and webinars. This page is updated regularly, so ensure you check back as often as possible for new uploads and to subscribe to our YouTube channel. A certificate of attendance will be issued a few days after this webinar. I now introduce you to the SAIEE President, Ms. Gourrah. She has been part of the energy industry in South Africa for over 25 years. She started her career as a consultant and later was appointed as the City Electrical Engineer for East London. With more than 2 decades of experience as an electrical engineer, Gourrah also holds several qualifications, including a Bachelor in Engineering for Electrical and Electronics, Masters in Business Administration, and Government Certificate of Competency. Currently, she is the Business Development Specialist for Transmission and Distribution and EPC within Actum. In this role, she is involved with the business development of the different products manufactured within transmission and distribution, as well as the service offerings of the EPC division. Ms. Gourrah.
Thank you very much, Minx. Thanks for that introduction. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the South African Institute of Electrical Engineers, I would like to welcome you all to our Entrepreneurship and Innovation Chapter webinar, as well as the launch. A special welcome to our esteemed panelists from literally all over the world, I see, and our attendees that have joined us as well. So it gives me great pleasure in launching the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Chapter of the South African Institute of Electrical Engineers. I'd also like to acknowledge Yolanda on her election as the chairperson, as well as Dr. Bhero, who is the vice chair, and for taking the lead in establishing this chapter along with your team. I also know Yolanda from a while back, and she's been a champion in terms of women in energy. So I'm so proud for her stepping up to take the lead in this newly formed chapter, under the guidance of Refilwe Buthelezi, who chairs the systems section under which this chapter resides. I'd also like to acknowledge Prudence Madiba, who is heading the Technology and Knowledge Leadership Committee. So it's no coincidence that this launches during the Global Entrepreneurship Week. However, South Africa has an average innovation index of approximately 36.28 points in 2019 versus an average of 36.31 points, which is based on a research that is done over 129 countries. But when it comes to entrepreneurship, it's something that's lacking in South Africa in particular, and I think in Africa as a whole. So if you look at South Africa, we're quite fairly low in around 11%, which is not so good, but we are picking up every year. So one of the most successful entrepreneurs that everyone knows from South Africa is Elon Musk, and he's got a net worth of $22.2 billion. So we have enough young entrepreneurs in South Africa to look up to. And another particular example is Sandile Shezi, who was a self-made millionaire at the age of 23 and has a net worth of $2.3 million. So not rands, dollars. And he's only 26 this year. So why is the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Chapter so important for South Africa? I think entrepreneurship and innovation can successfully alleviate poverty, stimulate economic growth, and improve job creation, which links to the development of the SMME sector. Economic development is not just for entrepreneurs, but also the related businesses and the country as a whole. So the South African Institute of Electrical Engineers is very proud to announce this launch and will encourage people of similar interests to network, share knowledge, participate, and empower people that want to learn about growth, development, innovative solutions, and the entrepreneurial ecosystem. This chapter will drive entrepreneurship and innovation to boost the rapid economic growth in Africa. Hopefully, this chapter strives to support entrepreneurs with soft skills, educate, and advise them on how to succeed. So once again, I would like to welcome our esteemed panelists, the audience, and partners who have made this possible today. I look forward to this chapter growing from strength to strength with new innovations and some self-made entrepreneurs. I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gourrah. I now introduce the Chairperson of the SAIEE Entrepreneurship and Innovation Chapter, Ms. Yolanda Mabuto. Yolanda is breaking boundaries continentally and internationally as a young woman business leader from the continent with ideas to solve global economic challenges in Africa and beyond. She's an entrepreneur, member of BRICS Energy and Green Economy Working Group, international partner for World Business Angel and Investment Forum, advisory board member for Africa Utility Week. She served as a council member for AMEU in 2016. She has qualifications from UCT School of Business. She served as a judge for Business International Exchange Initiative, Entrepreneurship Accelerator Competitions, and AMEU Technical Papers for 2 years. Yolanda is an education and economics activist and a pioneer for women advancement. She is multiple award winner who recently won Award for Women in STEM in 2019. Ms. Mabuto.
Thank you so much, Myanyx, for that introduction. It gives me a pleasure to welcome everyone this afternoon and this morning, if it's morning on your side. It is indeed a pleasure for us to be launching this chapter during the Global Entrepreneurship Week, as my president has alluded into in a speech. We are so proud and very much excited to be leading this initiative together with my team. It gives us also a pleasure to be able to drive the economic growth of our country while we're doing that, making sure that we are collaborating. And this is the time where we need to change as countries, especially South Africa. We need to innovate more and we need to collaborate in doing that because we can learn more from the countries who have done many things before us or who are still trying to get new ideas and new innovation. Now, my slot is really to share about the vision of this chapter, to share about the mission, and really to make a call to action, because we want to make sure after this event, we have new members, we have new collaborators, we have new advisors that will be stepping up on board and saying, we want to work with you as you grow this chapter. I will be sharing we should give an overview of who we are and what our vision is, and then you can see if it aligns with you and you can join us. Here's my presentation. Myanyx, are you able to give me the sharing rights for the presentation? Thank you. As my president has mentioned, that this is a new chapter, and we are a new chapter that is looking to partner with other organizations. We want to provide the best knowledge-driven innovation and entrepreneurial support for sustainable economic growth. We have seen what the COVID-19 has done in the businesses that are trying to strive. And for this chapter has been birthed exactly for such times like these, where we can come up with great ideas. We will partner with great partners who will then help us nurture our economy as South Africa, and also really make sure that we create income opportunities for SMEs and startups. Our mission is really to make sure that we provide competitive advantage to our members, to make sure that even our stakeholders, they are able to give us knowledge-driven advice that will help us to exchange information, not only within the members, but with the broader community of the entrepreneurship. So how we are going to make sure that we implement in this chapter? We will implement through, make sure that we are structuring our implementation through working groups. We have leaders who will be leading these working groups, and we are calling out for you, the citizens of South Africa, or even citizens of the world, to come and partner with us. We have working groups like business and leadership skills. We have funding and rating, so on and so forth. And what I would like to really emphasize is the networking and partnerships working group, where we are looking for more partners to partner with us. We are also looking for students, innovators, and those who are great in research and development to help us come up with great research that will help the country with so many challenges that we are facing. We will do that through ensuring that we work very well with the government. Hence, we have amazing speakers today with us who will be sharing how can the global economy and how can the global community work with us and support us in driving our initiatives. That is the end of my presentation. Now, it gives me a pleasure to make sure that as we start our event today, I've got a number of speakers, as my president has alluded to, from across the globe. We are excited today to have Sandra Baer, all the way from the US. Sandra is the president of Personal Cities. She's a champion of creative collaboration between the public and the private sector. She currently serves as the president of Personal Cities, a smart city company that is focused on city branding and identifying social inclusion and equity, and the acceleration of digital technology investment. She has advised several cities in the US and Europe and has consulted City Zenith, Urban Leap, City Beats, and Alto Consultants. Ms. Baer is a global ambassador for the Edison Electric Institute, a member of Denton Smart Cities and Communities think tank, and a member of the Women's Business Collaborative Advisory. She will be sharing with us how can we use technology and innovation to make sure that we support our SMEs and our startups. Over to you, Sandra.
Thank you, Yolanda. And good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone on this call. It is an honor for me to be here. I want to start with a very big number, 10 billion. Many of you may know that number as the projected population of the world in the year 2050. And most important to me and our company, Personal Cities, is the number 8.5 billion. 8.5 billion, almost 2/3 of the world's population will live in cities by the year 2050. We believe that cities are all about how we live together, how we collaborate, how we work together. And I think the smart cities are really focused on serving the needs of everyone that lives, visits, and works in a city. The striking fact of our times today is that we all are so interconnected. The interdependencies of our lives across all borders, which this event actually epitomizes. That's what cities are all about today. And I think that even amidst all the crises that are converging on us, the coronavirus, social and racial injustice, income inequality, vexing global recessions, and of course the overarching idea of the global climate crisis, all of these challenges have sort of converged on us, but I think they represent huge opportunities for cities. In fact, I think now is the perfect time for bigger, bolder transformation. So today, in just a few minutes, I'm going to answer some of the questions that Yolanda gave me about technology opportunities. I'll focus on the ecosystem of a city, different than just city government. We believe that more than local government, the decision makers in a city should include the private sector, of course, also the nonprofits, the academic institutions, the civic organizations, investors, entrepreneurs, the designers of a city, the architects, the urban planners, of course, the engineers, which I hope many of the engineers are in this audience listening to what I have to say about cities, because I think you are at the very forefront of thinking differently about how a city should work. That ecosystem should also include especially disadvantaged populations. So that's who I'm talking about when I talk about the ecosystem of a city. From my experience in working with cities for many years, I have learned that savvy city leaders have a spark. They have a willingness to listen. They have the courage to ask the difficult questions. And the smartest city leaders should be listening to all of the voices, of which this audience is certainly a part. Yolanda's first question was what future technologies are needed to address the innovation challenges and what's available in the world today. As I work with cities in the United States and across the globe, I see that many of the challenges that we are dealing with today during a COVID environment were existent pre-COVID, of course. Problems with transportation and mobility, problems around cybersecurity, privacy, just the whole public safety environment, effective and efficient city operations, including social inclusion, education, health security, and of course the support of small and medium-sized enterprises. Although COVID has changed our world, these challenges certainly still exist today. So I want to just mention 3 that are most relevant. There's probably 20, which you'll hear about today in this event from other of the esteemed panelists on this call. But I'll just talk about 3. The first of which is artificial intelligence and machine learning. AI enables a city to explore what citizens really want and need. For example, I work with a company called City Beats, and they are able to use a platform to very quickly do the analysis of all social media, all public communications, to find out what citizens are really talking about, what they're concerned about, what they really want and need. And that ability better informs city decision makers. For example, a city leader may believe that the biggest problems in his city are around public safety or criminal activity, but what people are really concerned about is affordable housing, for example. So I think the artificial intelligence that informs cities is going to explode over the next several years and help us make better decisions. Artificial intelligence, of course, is also really important to enable employees to focus on higher level analyses, leaving the mundane work of reports and processes to machines. It's really a way to enable more and better jobs. And I think when we talk about the future of work, AI is really at the forefront of creating new work for so many of you in this audience that have engineering degrees and care about the future of our urban space. The second technology I wanted to talk about is IoT and data analytics. The Internet of Things uses sensors and cameras to monitor everything from traffic flow to air quality, noise pollution. It can monitor and improve resident safety and security. All of these sensors and cameras, I think, are somewhat controversial. They need to be used for good and not for ill, as is true of all the new technologies. But they really do provide data that informs smarter decisions in cities. So I'm a big fan of IoT. I've worked with a company called City Zenith, based in Chicago, Illinois, and they have used the digital twin technology, which is a technology that enables a digital representation of a building before it's built or a road before it's constructed, to really measure the impact that that building would have on the city and its occupants. And that kind of technology is worth its weight in gold. So a city doesn't need to make an investment until it's really certain about the impact. The third technology that I think is really important to cities is self-driving cars and autonomous vehicles. Cities around the globe are investing in autonomous vehicle technology. In the United States, Phoenix, Arizona, San Francisco, all parts of Silicon Valley are investing. And in fact, there's a new city in Japan called the Woven City that was built specifically to test autonomous vehicles in a real world environment. So I think you're going to see much more as that expands and grows across cities around the world. So finally, Yolanda asked me to answer the question, what partnerships do I think African companies need to make to accelerate innovation? And as we all know from so many Zoom calls, we can cross borders very quickly now. I prefer the in-person gathering, but I've learned to love these Zoom calls because I get to communicate with people, for example, in Cape Town and Johannesburg, that I wouldn't have met perhaps had I not been able to travel there. I hope that happens in the future. But I wanted to mention a company that I work with based in Nashville, Tennessee. The company is called Devmar Products. It's a very smart company run by a CEO named Sharon Reynolds, who actually may be attending this call. The company provides sustainable, environmentally friendly products around the globe to clean and disinfect and protect surfaces. So that capability and the need for that kind of health safety precaution is abundant around cities everywhere. And I think that's the kind of partnership anyone on this call that wants to reach out to Devmar Products and Sharon Reynolds, I think you should do it, because that's the kind of partnership where we all need to improve our safety and health, especially as it affects buildings and our ability to work and be mobile around a city. It's just another example of where I think we can support small and medium-sized enterprises. If they prosper, then cities will prosper in the future. I want to leave with just one final inspiration, I hope, that now is the perfect time for transformation. Frankly, since the 20th century, our world has transformed into a web of cities. They are moving, they are changing faster than I think any of us can keep up with. But I believe that as technology flourishes, it's up to us living and working in cities to use the technology for good, always for good, and to take care of each other to fuel a sustainable, inclusive society. So I'd be happy to take more questions. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about what's happening in cities around the world and what I think can happen with your support, your engagement going forward. Thank you so much, Yolanda.
Thank you very much, Sandra, for that. And I think it is indeed that it's true when you say the time for innovation starts now, and that means that we must make sure that we've got the right skills and the right people to train. Now, our next speaker is Thembile Ndlovu. Thembile mentioned that she had some technical challenge. I'm not sure if she's here. Thembile, just indicate if you're here. If not, we'll just move to the next speaker. Probably she will join us later. She did indicate some challenges with the network. Can we have our next speaker? Our next speaker is not new into the SAIEE family. He is Hoffman, who is the founder and the CEO of Myanyx Global and MyTechie SA. Andre is an ICT professional, having worked in the industry for over 40 years, a veteran of the telecoms industry in South Africa, and now a gig economy entrepreneur, where he is leveraging technology to go beyond the fix by creating job creators through his MyTechie business. Andrew is a founder and CEO of Myanyx Global, MyTechie SA, and the Make a Difference Foundation. Along with his industry partner, he is building an ecosystem that is essentially a facilitator of standardized technical and artisan skills and services to local communities and service providers, and matching them in a digital marketplace. Andre is a past president of South African Institute of Electrical Engineers and a registered engineering technologist with the Engineering Council. He will be sharing with us what type of skills do we need to develop our youth, and what really can be done to make sure that we close the skill gap in our country. Over to you, Andre.
Thank you, Yolanda. And Madam President and distinguished guests, it is indeed a privilege for me to spend some time with you this afternoon or morning, wherever it is. As Yolanda mentioned, I'm a repurposed telecoms engineering practitioner, passionate about making a difference in our world and in our country specifically, which brings me to the MyTechie concept, which is a new gig economy digital services trading platform with a mobile capability. We acknowledge that we've entered the era of where skills and services are traded openly and more directly, peer-to-peer, disrupting the traditional organizational control structures, which brings lots of opportunities and obviously risks. but it's coming at us whether we like it or not. And South Africa, like many countries, we have a lot of hidden talent and skill under and unemployed people, yet all we require is to leverage technology cleverly to make it visible to the market that it hopes to address, and preferably within a proximity for both the seller and the customer. With MyTechie, we aim to close that gap, the gap between learning, application, and market demand for skills, within a proximity of a local community, and thereby improve the earning capability and the economic survivability of our people. We aim to go beyond the fix by creating job creators. We believe the best way to emancipate workers is to empower them to become their own bosses. So what are the examples? What are the examples of innovation that we have or are beginning to use to benefit our youth? Young people today and graduates find it very difficult to get work-based experience. It's a big challenge today for graduates, and MyTechie provides a tiered roadmap which is financially incentivized from internship to qualification to master of the craft. The principle is each one takes the hand of the one below and lifts them up. We're not just a yellow pages. We provide an ecosystem of support around the candidates, things like financial services, for loans for small businesses, medical aids, pensions. We cater for these kinds of things in the ecosystem. In the future, we will enable a bartering economy via a wallet-based digital token. We leverage buying power within the group through the internal wallet to reduce supply side costs of things like consumables, tools, other resources. So there is going to be some disintermediation. We do value and incentivize professional affiliations, like with the voluntary associations, such as the South African Institute of Electrical Engineers, the Institute of Information Technology Professionals. We do this for a specific reason. We wish to leverage things like continued professional development, mentorship, and codes of professional ethics. We assess the gaps. We provide our candidates with opportunity density, more arrows in their quiver, leverage the data of the market around them. And if an individual has a certain skill set, but the market around them requires something slightly different, as you would expect in a smart city where IoT is coming at you, then we offer them access to micro courses to upgrade their skills and to develop them to address the needs that are within the proximity of where they are. So we embrace a systemically viable culture of stakeholder optimization, which we believe creates a value chain balance rather than the traditional MBA mantras of maximize shareholder value or customer focus. All these things are in a way imbalanced, and they create internal or external pain points and ultimately drive unacceptable levels of inequality. So how can we build South Africa an innovative culture and motivate creativity in the boosting of the economy? Well, employment is no longer a reasonable expectation for our youth. We need to develop entrepreneurship culture, even from the school level. Policies need to incentivize innovation hubs, maker hubs. There's a lot of glorification of these elite degrees, but not really a need for so many of them. We need to lift the profile of the vocational trades. We need to make it cool to participate in things like the World Skills Competition, the Olympic Games of Skills. A lot of our towns and suburbs have liquor stores, sports gambling joints, but no libraries, no internet hubs, or very few of these things, very few vocational trade schools. So there's definitely room for improvement. Now, what are some of the key perspectives and practices that can help us in shaping the future? Besides being rich in mineral wealth, Africa and South Africa has a relatively young population. We can and should aspire to be the go-to skills source for projects globally, if we want to be. The rest of the, let's call it, rich world is aging. But we should have the mindset to train our youth with the very best training methodologies and vocational skills, and set up Africa and South Africa as the go-to repository for skilled artisans, technicians, technologists, engineers for global projects. The colonialists and the imperialists raided Africa for slaves and cheap labor, but no more. Now we aim to have real skills and contractual terms and conditions. Work is changing. It's becoming short-term, on-demand, flexible, skilled-based, increasingly driven by data and algorithms, and availability and proximity. So we need to understand all this so that we can support our workforce. What are the factors of success in skills development for youth employment in the future? Well, to my mind, the future is a distributed and agile future. It's not monolithic and centralized. The strength of the internet lies in its resilience and distributed nature. The vulnerability of any system is related to minimizing the single points of failure. Ask any engineer. Survivability in a pandemic-affected world like we face now depends on having isolated pockets of healthy capacity able to respond on demand. So if you think about distributed ledger, which is the future, versus central banking, think about smart grid versus generation, transmission, and distribution. There's no sense in building the Titanic to cross the river when all you need is a rubber duck. A lot of these degrees and things that people are getting are not guaranteeing economic emancipation for the people that get them. We need relevant micro skills, micro courses, agile response to adapt to changing market needs in the local communities. So we're prioritizing stackable competencies, which are micro-credentialed in an industry-aligned environment to allow people to enter and exit the system at multiple points along a lifetime of their learning process and help the youth to empower themselves. We're working on a specific project at the moment. It's a team which we are establishing to refurbish an older technical training facility in Johannesburg, in the suburb of Malvern in Kensington. This facility is equipped to provide practical training in electricians, fitters and turners, motor mechanics, and other things. And once it's set up, we hope to use it as a use case, a model use case, to adopt other such centers. There were many of these available in the old South Africa. They got mothballed, and we're trying to resurrect them and to create skills for our youth, skills that are relevant still. The object will be to leverage the capacity that's in a place like that for the benefit of the local community in the area, go beyond just providing the training and empower the learners to be ready for taking on employment or to be able to start their own businesses, to become independent contractors, use their new skills to provide valuable services to the community. And in future, there'll be strong partnerships with industry specialists that can introduce things like industrial automation, robotics, 3D printing, additive manufacturing, in accordance with what the market demands in the fourth industrial revolution. There's a potential also to establish a makerspace, creativity, innovation hub in the community. So to end off, I'll just quote Richard Branson: if you aren't making a difference in other people's lives, you shouldn't be in business. It's that simple. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Andre. And I think indeed it is true that if you aren't making a difference or a change, you really should rethink why you are doing the business. And these are the businesses that we want to, as this chapter, so that we can allow our youth to be able to be the creators of employment for the next generation. Thank you so much for sharing that. I would like to urge our attendees to please make sure that you have your questions on the chat box. We'll make sure that each and every after segment, which is this one is innovation and skills development, we will take your questions. If we don't get to it, we will surely make sure that each panelist that you directed it to will have an opportunity to answer, and we'll post it on our website. Thank you so much again for that, Andre. Our next speaker then is Ndlovu. Just checking if she was able to connect. If
yes,
not,
Yolanda, yeah.
Thank you, Thembile. Thembile Ndlovu is a partner development manager for Microsoft. Thembile Ndlovu is a strong ambassador of lifelong learning, empowerment, and mentorship. She was awarded the Mail and Guardian Top 200 Young South African Award in 2019 for her influential work in education. Thembile is the partner development manager for emerging partners at Microsoft South Africa. She leads the Emerging Partner Program, which supports and equips 100% Black-owned, female-owned SMMEs to accelerate their capabilities and be sustainable Microsoft partners. She is the Director of Business Development for Engage South Africa, My Voice, which is an organization that seeks to safeguard and promote the equality of democracy in South Africa and globally through developing and empowering youth with skills to be responsible leaders. and active citizen. I'm sure you can tell why she is going to be sharing with us around innovation and skills development. Over to you, Thembile.
Thank you, Yolanda. And it's so funny that we're here to talk about technology, and technology does a big one on me. But now that that has been handled, I must say it's a pleasure to be here with you, with some of our speakers, and also with our attendees as well. I think you've already mentioned my background in terms of skills, but also the role that I'm currently doing at the moment. And I do want to just mention that it's such a privilege to be talking on skills, and I believe I'm going to focus on the youth because that's how you addressed my queries, or rather the questions that you sent through to me on youth employment and how do we address that through the use of technology, education and training. And in my background with working with young people, we are talking about unemployment, and we know that as Africans and in South Africa predominantly, youth unemployment is high and on the rise. And the only way to be able to address the youth unemployment is to be able to, one, create new skills so that we're able to get young people employed in different areas, but also to create jobs. And in creating jobs, it opens up a space for innovation because we need to start being creative about the jobs that we are creating. We can no longer do the traditional jobs that have been in the market, but we're in a space and in an era where we need to be creative and start coming up with new jobs. Also, new ways of working. Right now, we've been forced to be at home. I'm sure that if it was in another era, we probably would be having this session or this conference face to face. But because of the space and the era that we're in, we've been forced to have a webinar and sort of move to the digital world. So the changing in mindsets of the jobs that are available and the way that we do work is one that is going to be very critical for us in this area. So we've now come up with digital strategists, right? With digital marketing, which are jobs that weren't there formerly because we had marketing in its traditional form. But now because of the change moving now into the digital platforms, that has opened up opportunities for new jobs. And with new jobs coming, it becomes imperative. I know many of us have heard of the fourth industrial revolution, and some people are still reluctant to sort of jump onto the bandwidth and the movement, but we've become aware that it's not only imperative for the digital, the tech sector to move and be aware of the fourth industrial revolution, but it actually hits us in all our different spheres. So be it in marketing, be it in health, be it in agriculture, every single industry, be it in mining, has had to adjust to the fourth industrial revolution and understand what that revolution means for you in your own space. So that then means that in skilling and in young people getting jobs, we need to be continually upskilling ourselves, continually making ourselves relevant for the market's demand. And one of the other questions that Yolanda posed to me was that as we're in technology and innovation is booming and hitting Africa, there's been a gender divide. And we need to ensure that women and girls are also able to participate in this revolution, be it in innovation, technology, fourth industrial revolution. And it's prime opportunity for us to use technology to catalyze that we're being more inclusive in our economy and more inclusive for young women in terms of addressing income inequality as well. And the question is, how do we bridge that gap in terms of that gender divide? I think the first thing, it starts at home. What you will traditionally find is that our young boys will be caught playing TV games or computer games, and our young girls will not be there. They'll be either playing with dolls or they'll be taught in the kitchen to do something. It starts at home to break that inequality. That girls can also start playing with computer games as well. Because when it comes to tech, the sooner you are groomed in acquainting yourself with a keypad, or keyboard rather, the easier you are in terms of getting technical skills. Then it moves from home into the schooling system. When we go to our varsities, you'll find that there's one girl as opposed to 10 other guys in the classroom. failure rate is high for a young girl compared to their counterparts, male counterparts. What that then means is we need to put in extra effort to say, young girl, you are required, you have a seat in that classroom, you have a seat in that room, and encourage them and motivate them to not quit. Yes, there will be those failure roads, because regardless of gender, there are failures, I mean, not failures, but dropouts as they go through the schooling system. But we need to hold on to the girl that is in that classroom to ensure that they're able to make it right throughout. Then when it moves beyond the classroom, we now start looking into the corporate environment, into the work world, when they get into a corporate space and they are the only individual or the only female in a boardroom. There again, we need to say, young woman, you have a seat at the table. You are welcome and you deserve that position. And then also, we need more CEOs, more directors in ICT spaces. You know, I'm very proud that as Microsoft South Africa specifically, we, as of last year, got our first female MD. Now, coming in 2019, it's late, but we still welcome that, because it's an achievement where a young girl in school and varsity looks and says, that's a familiar face, and I too can aspire for that. So that is how I would really say, in the tech space, we are toning into to close that gap for females and for young girls, but really start them early. It is a viable career that a young girl can aspire to. No longer can we say it's limited to our male counterparts. And in addition to that, I really want to stress that the World Economic Forum recently published some of the skills that are critical in an era of the fourth industrial revolution. And these include critical thinking, negotiating skills, cognitive thinking, flexibility. Over and above that, we need to continue to think that how are you developing yourselves? Back again to the pandemic that has hit us, we've seen that certain jobs did not survive the pandemic because those skills are now outdated as we're transitioning into the digital platform. Right now, as I'm working with our emerging partners, not only are we supporting them from a technical perspective, but we also realize that there's business skills that we need to work with, and those are some of the skills that the World Economic Forum has detailed. But in a tech space, you need to understand that skills are constantly evolving. From a Microsoft perspective, we have new releases of certifications every other year. So if you're coming to a customer with, hey, I've got skills from last year, you are slowly realizing that you have competitors who are miles ahead of you, who are now going to be able to get that specific customer. So it's staying ahead of the game in terms of skills. And I refer to that as future-proofing yourself, future-proofing your organization. Not only do you make yourself and your organization relevant for today's market, but you also look at how are you making yourself relevant for tomorrow's market, the next year's market. So ensuring that from a futuristic point of view, you have the skills. In Africa and South Africa right now, developers are required. So we don't want to be outsourcing developers to develop applications for us, or we don't want to be using applications that are developed abroad. We want to have those home ground. Let's have local youths that are developing applications for us, local organizations that are driving and being in the forefront of new development that is happening on the continent. So from a skills development point of view, I really want to mention that there are various avenues that are available from Microsoft that you have opportunities to leverage, but also for our SMMEs, there's a focus and there's a demand for us to have local organizations that are driving local business. Thank you, Yolanda.
Thank you very much for that, Thembile. It really is true that there are so many divides in our economy, and gender divide is one of those, including financial divide and now digital divide. This chapter serves exactly to make sure that we close those divides, and we'll do that by partnering with organizations like Microsoft to ensure that we really do close the gap in the market. Thank you so much for that speech. Our next speaker, who is going to be sharing with us on a global platform, because he is also the partner in the World Business Angel Investment Forum, is Professor Kevin Mugarura. He is an innovations lead analyst for Blue Node Media. Kevin is an expert in digital innovations in frontier technologies such as blockchain, AI, additive manufacturing, and drones. He has experience working as a consultant for IBM, Google, World Bank, US Department of Health, UN, and the private sector in Europe, North America, and Africa. He is versatile and agile, expertise developing and managing complex projects across the education, health, and agriculture fields using blockchain, artificial intelligence to deliver rich user experiences. He has startup experience in North America, where he was the technical founder for Menu Test and the other startups in Africa. He will be sharing with us how our African SMEs and startups can really, again, leverage on the technology and the innovation to make sure that we drive the growth in the businesses that we see that are thriving in the market. Over to you, Professor Mugarura. He also did indicate that he had some challenges connecting. I'm not sure. In fact, he connected, but there was a sound challenge. I'm not sure if he was able to solve that. It seems like it was not able to. However, I would like to urge our attendees to please make sure that you chat on the chat box, pose some question to our panelists, and also full of the agenda that we've handed out. There's a link that you need to also click on, become a member. As well, I have said during my presentation, we are looking for new members who want to grow their businesses. Is that Professor Mugarura? That sounds
yes,
like
I'm around.
not. All right, thank you so much, Prof. I'll just hand over to you. Please share. We can hear you.
Great. Thanks for the introduction. And yeah, I would really, yeah, I'd like to start with innovation in Africa and solving the complex youth unemployment challenge. So just a brief background, Blue Node Media is a company I started, and we work in work on different projects: education, health, agriculture. And what we try to do is develop platforms that are simple, either for farmers or kids to study from home and similar projects. But the main thing is, let's say, that there is technologies out there, AI, blockchain, and so many other, and they have a lot of potential. But yeah, I don't want to say Africa does not need them, but let's say that, let's point out that, yeah, most of these technologies mainly talk. What we need, simple technologies that can solve very basic things. If you look at the problem of traffic jam, one of the earlier speakers talked about smart cities. So what's causing this traffic jam? People are moving from one office to be a government office to another government office. And some of these things they are going there to do could be digitized. So you don't have to deal with a lot of paperwork. If you're going to renew your passport, if you're going to get a driving license or something like that. Any other thing that you want to do, if these systems were in place to digitize them, you'd have less people moving around to do mundane tasks. So quite briefly, I'll talk about job creation. And with job creation, there are many things that have changed over the past 15, 20 years. So the biggest advantage right now is we have high-speed internet. 15, 20 years ago, that was not the case. What this means is that if you look at the freelance platforms, Freelancer, Fiverr, and others, what happens is that they are dominated by the Asian tigers, China, India, Vietnam, Bangladesh. So our youth could be able to tap into this freelance market, and my company developed some for that, but still very early stage. Now, Africa has certain advantages over the Asian countries. One of them is time zone. So we have a similar time zone to Europe, and someone may not think of it as a big issue, but in the real world, it's a big issue. So with the advent of the internet, and internet costs are reducing every 6 months. Internet costs, computer costs are going down. So our youth have to utilize the internet to get jobs or create products, and it's much easier today. Someone can just design a website. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say for now.
Thank you so much for that, Prof. I'll try and rush quickly to our other speaker that needs to leave urgently. I was going to take questions, but I'm not sure if Mr. Matabane is ready just to give us his delivered oath speech, because I know he needs to be elsewhere urgently. Mr. Matabane, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, can you hear me? Thank you very much, Yolanda.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Matabane. I will just quickly introduce you. I know you need to be elsewhere urgently. Mr. Matabane is the CEO of Black Business Council. He spearheaded Centec Limited expansion into the rest of the African continent since July 2017. Before that, he spent 5 years as the Chief Operating Officer and Executive Director of Centec. During his tenure as CEO, he achieved 5 consecutive clean audits, which is a first in the industry of the company. He is a highly experienced public and private sector professional with more than 20 years working experience. And he has served as an executive director of operations and transformation policy at Business Utility South Africa. He held various strategic positions at Black Management Forum in Gauteng Provincial Legislature, City Power, Johannesburg, Spornet, and Anglo-African. And now he will be sharing with us what can SMEs get from associations like BBC. What are the available opportunities that they can tap into during COVID period as well as beyond? Over to you, Mr. Matabane.
Yeah, thank you very much, Yolanda, and congratulations for launching this Entrepreneurship and Innovation Chapter. We hope we'll be able to work together moving forward in making sure that we create jobs in the country. We grow the economy, as you are very much aware that our economy is not necessarily doing well as we speak. We've got one of the most one of the highest unemployment in the world. More than 50% of our young people are unemployed. We do even have something that is very strange in South Africa called Unemployed Graduates Association. So we do have people who've got BSc Engineering, BCom Accounting, geologies, and other qualifications who are not employed, who haven't been employed for some time. And you may have seen in social media, some of them will even go and stand on the road with a placard that says, I'm looking for a job. So it's important that we promote entrepreneurship, because I think our education system has basically promoted employment. It has not necessarily taught us to go and create work or create companies that will create jobs for other people. maybe just a brief background of what the Black Business Council is. We are a confederation of Black business in the country. We're like a consortium of Black business if you take the unions into consideration. And our main purpose is lobby. We lobby government, we lobby big business, we lobby small business on policy matters. And we advocate for the implementation of policies where those policies are, to make sure that Black business in general plays a meaningful role in the mainstream economy. So we were involved in the process at Network where we were discussing the economic recovery and economic reconstruction and recovery plan led by the president of the country. And as such, we were at the center of basically what is happening in the country. And then hence I think we like what we see, because it has been proven all over the world that if you want to create jobs in any country, you have to support small businesses. And then what we do, because we have realized that most of the small businesses are struggling with access to funding and access to the market. So we now and then have sessions where we invite people who are providing funding, who are providing the markets to come and share with us how we can partner with them in making sure that they get our members access to funding. So we because of the challenge that South Africa has, South Africa does not necessarily have what is called risk funding. So we have then partnered with the crowdfunders, because those they tend to have a higher appetite because most of the innovations, for example, if you develop a solution, you are likely not to be funded by a typical bank, because they want to consider your business as a human resource related or human resource driven company, and because of the risks, they may not necessarily fund you, because I think most of the funding institutions are still used to funding the mortar and brick type of businesses where they can touch something. So as such, to elevate that, we've partnered with the crowdfunders. We've partnered with the venture capitalists. We've partnered with the people who have started what is called SME funds. And then all this type of funders who are available, we've got a higher risk profile than we've got a higher appetite for risks than the normal banks. We do still work with the normal banks, obviously, so that our members can be funded for bigger projects and type of brick and mortar type of projects. But we are open to working with you. I think we may, when the right time comes, we may have a session with you to then understand how we can partner so that we can grow the economy and reduce unemployment. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Matabane. I like it when a call to action has a call immediately. So we will answer to that call, because we would really want to partner with your organization as our chapter, so that we can really support SMEs and startups and really grow the economy and find ways of really getting them access to the market, as well as networking and leadership skills. Now I'll take some questions from the chat box from our attendees, and I can only see one now, and it's directed to Thembile. I hope she's still here. The question goes like this: what will, in your own opinion, what will be the change mindset of women to ensure that they make the ICT attractive? What is your view? And this question is coming from Anthony.
Hello, thank you, Yolanda, for the question, and thank you to the attendee who posted that question. I just missed their name. I think the first thing is we need to deconstruct the idea of IT being male dominated and being a sector for males to go into. I think the minute we start looking at fourth industrial revolution and we look at how maybe the professions that women are in, how is technology impacting those? So sometimes you don't need to even think of yourself as a system engineer where you are working on computers and installing software, but you're looking at in your space, you are incorporating technology. The minute we start deconstructing that traditional sense is the way when women start going, oh, that's also attractive to me. But that's one element. The other element is it is also attractive for a woman to be able to code. It is also attractive, and I think it starts with us from an industry point of view to saying women are welcome, having more women in there, but also, as I mentioned, going back in schools, when we start having sessions where, I don't know, and I used to have a mentor where it is, I am the code. It's a female-owned IT organization that teaches, focuses young girls to code. The more IT organizations that we have that are women run, the more we see young women also coming up and saying, I want to be a part of that. There's another social coders as well, young woman that has led that initiative, and that's really also gotten more young girls to find it attractive. So I think it really starts with deconstructing our minds from home to the workplace, but also into saying that it doesn't have to be the traditional IT that we know it's in, but it's really possible to apply some of the IT elements in some of our other industries as well. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much for that, Thembile. We will then move to our next segment, which is managing and leveraging IP for startups and SME. And our first speaker is also not new to SAIEE because he is the vice chair of the chapter. He is Advocate Bhero, and he is an electronics engineer by profession. He is an advocate of the High Court of South Africa. He has worked as a chief design engineer for at least 4 years and has university lecturing experience spanning over 10 years. Both his honors and master's degree projects were implemented in the industry. He is a hands-on person. He designed and developed at least 4 different electronic products that were commercialized in his country of birth. Recently, he created and developed an electronic system which is being tested in the industry by one of the local companies in South Africa. He has a deep interest not only in finding practical engineering solutions to engineering problems, but the relevant IP law as well. He will then speak to us on how will this chapter that he is also leading will add value in supporting and empowering startups and SMEs in leveraging on their IP. Over to you, Dr. Bhero.
Thank you, Yolanda. And greetings to all colleagues, wherever you are. Some it's in the morning, some it's in the afternoon. I greet you all. Okay, the title of my presentation is Managing and Leveraging IP for Startups and SMEs Support. We may move to the next slide. Now, the presentation outline is going to be as follows. There are 7 items that I'm going to talk about, and they are all very important in my view. The first one will talk about the goals and objectives of EIC that are very relevant to this presentation. And next, we'll talk about a brief overview of IP protection, and then a brief overview of selected worldwide IP trends. And then we'll try to answer the question, how can developing countries leverage on and commercialize IP? We'll also try to answer the question, how can we leverage on technology transfer in developing countries to assist with inventing and entrepreneurship? We will also try to answer the question, what can governments do to stimulate inventing and entrepreneurship? And of course, we will conclude our presentation thereafter. Next slide. EIC's goals, number 5 and number 10. These are extracted from a list of about 11 goals that we have set for ourselves at EIC. But the ones that are very relevant to this presentation include the following. Goal number 5 states that assisting members on how to protect and commercialize their IP and how to utilize in a legally permissible manner the existing IP belonging to third parties. Goal number 10 states that lobbying the government to reform the IP policy and ensuring that IP training is made mandatory for all technical professions, especially engineering. And the entire presentation tries to back up these objectives and explain why IP is so important in our view. Next slide, please. Next. IP and patents. I'm not sure whether my heading is a correct one here, but what I was trying to convey here is that IP encompasses copyrights, for example. It encompasses trademarks, plant breeders' rights, patents, or sometimes called the pure patents, also design patents, as the case might be. But in this presentation, our focus is mainly on patents or pure patents and design patents. The other IPs, they are dealt with elsewhere, but for now, it's just going to be patents or pure patents and design patents. And we ask a question, what's the difference between pure patents and design patents? Now, patents often protect the underlying idea of an invention. The protection is given to the inventor for 20 years in exchange for disclosure of that invention. While design patents generally protect the aesthetic and functional aspects of inventions. Let's move to the next slide, please. Now, worldwide IP trends. What I want us to pick up from this slide is this. This shows patents that have been recorded since 1884 to 1999. And of particular note, where I draw your attention, it is the United States compared to China. Within that period, 1884 to 1999, China was number 8 with only 77 patents that had been applied in that period, while its US had about 1,576, meaning that USA at that time was 20 times, was applying for patents 20 times more than China. Let's move to the next slide, please. Now, in the next slide, this is showing the patents that have been applied for within the period of 2000 to 2020. Look at what has happened here. China was number 8 in the previous period, but now China has moved to number 2. And China, so far, the patents that have been submitted within this period is 3,640 compared to US, which is 6,852. But of particular interest is to say that China is now number 2 with 3,640 patents and 1.5 times less than USA. In the previous slide, we indicated that China was about 20 times less than the USA. That is the rate at which they were producing patents. Now, in China, for example, they were now submitting patent applications every other 2 days within the period of 2000 to 2020. And in USA, approximately 1 patent every day. Let's move on to the next slide, please. Now, when we compare to what has been happening to Africa, I just pick a few examples there. South Africa, Egypt, Nigeria, within the period of 1884 to 1999, South Africa 7, Egypt 6, Nigeria nothing. But within the period of 2000 to 2020, South Africa 114, Egypt 71, Nigeria 19. Other African states less than 5 patents. Please, let's move to the next slide. Let's move to the next slide. Well, maybe the next slide, please. Okay, I can continue with the presentation. Maybe there's something wrong with the technology. Now, the next slide, what it shows also is that when it comes to design patents, oh, we've moved, yes, design patents. With design patents, it's even worse. South Africa 1, Egypt 4, but within the period of 2000 to 2020, South Africa 41, Egypt 23. And I think you can all start to link on the levels of development of these countries. And in particular, let's talk about the next slide. Next slide, please. Now, an interesting thing is this: we all know how fast China has been developing economically. And from the comparison of the patents output in the previous 6 slides, they show that countries like China that increased, their patents output, they registered the fastest economic growth. For example, China itself, the recorded patents from 1884 to 2020 total 38,266, but about 30,063 were recorded in the period 2000 to 2020. And this means within the last 20 years, there was about 79% of the recorded patents within China. And we all know the story of China, how it has been industrializing, how it has been growing fast economically. And we can see how much all this is actually linked to the IP. Now, we dare to ask this. With this said, is there a need to overemphasize the importance of IP to economic growth? I wouldn't think so. Let's move to the next slide, please. Now, we ask a question: how can developing countries leverage on and commercialize IP patents? We must be reminded once more that inventors often exploit their patents within the allowable 20 years protection period by either licensing their patents out or by converting the patents into commercial products or systems. Now, what can startups, SMEs, and other concerned parties do if a patent is still subsisting or it's still under protection? We can check whether there is a license arrangement that allows other people to actually manufacture the product related to that patent under a license. And then you can then manufacture those products locally and, of course, make some profit and also helping your society. The second point, once 20 years has lapsed, which is the protection period, anyone can freely copy and exploit the expired patent without adverse legal consequences. Now, the importance of this point is that it means we can make effort to find out, because the database of all the patents is accessible. You can get information on which patents have now lapsed. Now, once it has lapsed, it means you can actually study that patent, come up with your production plan, setup, and start producing a product belonging or associated with that patent. So this also means that startups and SMEs can take full advantage of lapsed patents and produce some products, at least locally. Let's move to the next slide. We continue with the same question: how can developing countries leverage on and commercialize IP? Africa, and here it includes governments, startups, SMEs, and so forth, will need to diligently study both the subsisting and lapsed patents with a view of legally exploiting lapsed patents or exploring licensing options in order to manufacture her own goods to replace some of the imports with the locally made products. And we dare to ask, Why is it that Africa appears not to be exploiting the available lapsed patents in strengthening and expanding hair manufacturing industry? Our research focus might be misplaced. Next slide, please. Sadly, what is mostly observed at a number of African universities, particularly engineering faculties, it is pure and theoretical research work, and then publication of articles, journals, and conferences with little or no attention to the possible IP content of the publications and or commercial endpoint of the research. There is a serious downside, to this state of affairs, and I'll just briefly explain this. We fund our universities, our researchers, particularly engineering and technical fields. They do their researches, come up with papers that they publish in international journals. Yet our own industry has no capability to translate that research into commercial products and systems. But then what happens? Companies that are in developed countries, they read our papers, they read our publications, they then convert what we have said in our papers into commercial products, which they then sell back to us. That propels the further development of developed countries to be way ahead of us. But what is happening is that our own funding is actually putting us in a worse off situation where we are reduced to an importer. We are importing most of the things. So there is a serious downside, to this. But of course, there is alternative debate to that point. It is further saddening to observe that Africa has so many engineering professors, doctorate degree holders, some with more than 150 published articles. You just look at university websites and you will see this. But without even a single patent or a single research capable of commercialization, at least at a local level. Next slide, please.
Dr. Bhero, because of time, we're going to have to try and summarize because we want to make sure that all our speakers have an opportunity to really share what they want to share with the attendees. But we will be sharing the presentation with our attendees so that they don't miss this very crucial information.
Okay, thank you. We can skip this current slide. Let's go to the next slide, ma'am, so that I can wind up.
Yes.
So also here, what can governments do to stimulate inventing and entrepreneurship? I'll just take one point here, then we move on to the next slide. There is a need for complete overhaul of IP law and policy, including other relevant legislation, with the objective of stimulating IP generation and exploitation. I will skip again the next one. Let's go to the next slide. One thing which is important here is the point that is being raised on making the studying of IP mandatory. I'll take the last point, which says the rationale behind encouraging that the studying of IP be made mandatory is that by increasing the number of technical people who can read and study existing patents, we inevitably increase the chance of technical people finding legal variants of existing patents or come up with new patents altogether for exploitation. I think you can skip the next few slides. I'll tell you, skip this one. Go to the next one. Go to the next one, which is the last one. Oh, no, there's another one. The last one, let's go to, this must be the last one. I would say, concluding remarks, all technical people must be trained in basic patent analysis in addition to technical training. Governments must ensure this through appropriate policy changes. All other actions that can further IP training, generation, protection, adoption, commercialization must be considered seriously and adopted sooner than yesterday. Consequently, One of the EIC's goals is to tirelessly work with our government or governments and all other stakeholders towards the full implementation of the just stated proposition and all other goals of EIC. And in conclusion, we are all invited to partake in this seemingly important quest. And I thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bhero. I can't say more than you have said it because you have already made the call to action. Now, to move to the next speaker, who is McKevin Ayaba, who is a CEO of Set Up a Startup. He will be sharing with us how can the startups also be positioned for opportunities and really to be celebrated for the work that they are doing in the market. McKevin is an IT consultant by profession with a graduate degree in entrepreneurship, coupled with multiple certification in IT and startup ecosystem building. He is an ecosystem builder and wears many hats, and he's also the founder of Africa Entrepreneurship Ecosystem Builders Summit, which brings together the nation's top ecosystem builders and national ecosystem support organizations to convene conversations, gain insight from real-world case studies, and explore and experience new communities against the backdrop of some of the nation's top emerging ecosystems. Mr. Ayaba, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the call and appreciate what you guys have been doing. I think one of the key things that you've been mentioning, which is really key to our society right now, is partnership collaboration. And I think if just a quarter of every ecosystem builder could take this, then trust me, your vision for SAIEE will be achieved within a couple of years, and we'll build some of the greatest startup or innovation across the continent. Collaboration, partnership is the key takeaway each and everyone should take from here. Like you already mentioned, I'm the CEO of Set Up a Startup, and for some of you, you must have heard about the Southern Africa Startup Award, which I founded in 2017 as well. I'm just going to go straight to really just answering your question because of time. I really want to hear some of the challenges that other speakers will have to speak to us. But I'll give you asked me to answer 4 questions. You have one, what are some of the barriers in the growth of startup businesses, and what can startup do to disrupt innovation space? I would tell you that there are 3 to 4 critical barriers to what startups are facing. One would be access to finance. 2 will be access to market, which will get there. 3, you have entrepreneurship education is really key. And then thirdly, you will have the fact that they don't have access to resources. But let me give you, I think just mentioning this 4, I would then be able to give you what we are doing as a community, or what I and my team have been doing to solve some of these problems. Number 2, you asked that what is required to support the development of African technology and innovation and ecosystem to enable participation in this global market. The first 4 responses already answer some of this question, and I will show you how they work. But the answer is very simple. We need ecosystem builders. You know, people like you, people like SAIEE, like you. Those are the people that we need to really help African technology and innovation ecosystem participate at the global level. Yes, we have entrepreneurs, but the brutal truth is, they found without ecosystem builder, entrepreneurs are not going to scale beyond. Without people like SAIEE, without people like Set Up a Startup, like our organization, you are not going to have, and many others, entrepreneurs cannot scale beyond. ecosystem builders are the foundation of are the foundation and support of every entrepreneur. You asked another question: what frameworks or ecosystem needed to support a startup? It's very simple. We need to be able to map our ecosystem. The mapping our ecosystem will give access to young entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs. But more important, it comes back again to the boiling point of what you just mentioned, why you created this chapter, to say we want to work together, we should collaborate, we should partner. These are the major frameworks that any ecosystem need for us to be able to build or create great entrepreneurs or jobs within our economy. I should also share some of the startup opportunities in Africa. I mean, Sandra, our first speaker, did mention some of them. You have AI. You have the finance industry is being disrupted with fintech. You have the health tech. The health ecosystem also coming out so strong, which in other words, health tech. We have agriculture is really booming right now. We have so many problems in that space, and that's where you see a lot of startups can really do better in there. And they also have education as well. Those are the education platform as well. Education, which is the key problem within our continent that we need to explore. For us, we always say that we need to start entrepreneurship from school, even whether it's high school, secondary school, high school, university. If we can start entrepreneurship from this level of education, trust me, in the next 20 years, in the next 10, 20 years, we will build the kind of continent that we want to see. From a startup perspective, we are more focused. When we launched the award, the Southern Africa Startup Award in 2017, our purpose, our reason was to understand the ecosystem across South Africa, but more so across the whole continent. So we started by looking at the whole region, holistically at the whole region. Today, we are glad that we have our organization that are partnered with us to host the entire continent. But why the award were really great. We have some great, gave us an opportunity to see about 6,500 startups that are doing amazing work within our region. But they see some major challenges, which I mentioned some of them within in my first question. And the major challenges is that entrepreneurs are not investment ready. One of the critical challenges that we face in Africa is that as much as we have these great innovators, these great innovations, these great startups, these potentially great unicorns, they're not going to get there if they're not investment ready. There's an issue with a real big issue with investors. Investors are looking for startups that are investment ready, and we do not have those kind of startups that are investment ready at this particular moment within our continent. So what we have done, I don't know if you guys can see my screen.
Can I ask that we don't share? Can I ask that we don't share the video now because of time? We can send it. We can post it on our website because I want to respect our attendees' time and our speakers' time so that we don't go over. So if
that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. What I was saying again is that the most critical problems on how we can solve Africa innovation or solve some of the critical problems within Africa is that we must make sure that our startups are investment ready, and that's one of the jobs or activities of set up a startup. What we do best in making sure that startups are investment ready. We have just developed and just launched a program called Investment Readiness program, and we have tested this program with over 200 startups across the continent, and people are really excited, and people have started to buy into our program. Our program is not just to make sure that you are investment, but also our program also talks to people who feel the need to be entrepreneurs. You know, from how how do you generate an idea? How do you validate this idea? How do you put a whole team together? How do you build a brand around? How do you formalize it? How do you put together a whole pitch deck? But one more important thing about set up a startup is that we have partnered with really big investment firms. But the most important investment firm that we've partnered with, which many startups are facing, is we've partnered with an investment firm that all you need is your idea. If your idea is good enough for them, they will be able to help you to develop the technical component of this this idea and bring it to life. But also, like I mentioned, that one of the problems that entrepreneurs are facing are lack of resources. And because of that, we need to rely on ecosystem builders to make sure, which is incubators, accelerators, you know, entrepreneur support organization, innovation support organization. We need all these people to come together and look for and collaborate to see that we have resources in one place where entrepreneurs or startup can access, because we like working in silos. That's why I like your approach, because when we keep working in silos, we have resources that is scattered everywhere. It makes it difficult for entrepreneurs, difficult for startups to have access to the resources. Hence, we created a summit that is scheduled for next year to bring all ecosystem builders together to discuss some of these challenges. But more importantly, we partner also with top organizations in the world on how to help map our ecosystem, have an interconnected ecosystem so that startups can really have access to resources from a specific point of view. So for me, I really appreciate this call, and I think that maybe you can then share a video after. But for more issues, people can contact me and we can discuss further on how we can help startups. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ayaba. That was very informative. Thank you very much. I'll move straight over to the next speaker. We'll also be looking at SME development. What exactly do we need to make sure that we have the right frameworks and the right programs in ensuring that we support our SMEs? And Eric Proudfoot is the speaker for us who look at SME programs and what types of courses do we need? What types of probably practical, programs do we need to support our SME? Eric delivers leadership programs at top business schools globally, including Gordon Institute of Business Science, Wits Business School, Henley Business School, and London Business School. He has worked with numerous multinational listed companies globally, delivering executive leadership programs. Prior to this, he honed his skills working in the US for a development company for 5 years before returning to South Africa, where he spent another 5 years with a major corporate bank. After gaining valuable experience, Eric was appointed to an executive position managing an IT business before retiring to teach leadership, which has been his focus and passion over 10 years. Eric, over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Good evening. You're giving my age away when you're talking about all these different things, but thank you, everybody, for the time. The brief for us is to spend the next 5 minutes giving you some ideas to think about. What is the process for innovation, or how can we help SMEs be more successful, particularly around innovation? And I don't know if anybody in 5 minutes can give you the silver bullet, because if you can, please, give me a call, send me an email, and we'll put it we'll bottle it up and we'll put it into a bottle and we'll sell it, because it's such a broad topic and it's very, very complicated. And some people get it right and some people don't. There are thousands and thousands of of great ideas and entrepreneurial things that are in a cupboard somewhere, locked up, never got to see the light of day, or even if they did get to see the light of day, they just didn't get off the ground for whatever reason. So in the next 2 or 3 minutes, I want you to think slightly differently. I'm going to come at it from a completely different angle. The normal angle, I get it. You have to have training. You have to have technical skills. It's a given. Particularly in third world countries where we haven't really spent enough of our resources growing the maths and the finance and the engineering skills, because those are tough skills. Those aren't easy, and as a result, we've possibly fallen behind some of the more advanced countries. If you look at India, they spend a lot of time on maths and engineering. That's probably in the last 20 years. China as well. And the net effect is, through that investment 20 years ago, they become the technology giants of this world. America is no different. They import a lot of their skills from that. So I get the technology, and I get the entrepreneurial stuff around learning. But I want you to think about what's the other side of the equation. So for those of you not in South Africa, I encourage you to have a look at this program that's just been running across the Africa network, one of our television networks, and it's called Chasing the Sun. And everybody says, well, it's about rugby and a particular sport, rugby, and I've never played rugby. I've never done it. I don't know anything about it, therefore it doesn't interest me. And that's the point. It's not about rugby. And training and technical skill, or entrepreneurship and all the focus is not only should it be about the technical side of stuff, but it should be about the other side of the equation as well. And this program is not about rugby at all. So for those of you who have watched it, or those of you who haven't watched it, if you've watched it, go and watch it again, but through a different lens, through a lens of thinking differently. What is it that takes you to be successful? Because I think what's happened in teaching at the business schools, and I'm the first person to acknowledge, because I spend a lot of time, I've just finished teaching the whole cohort of brand new MBAs at London Business School, and I think what happens is we focus on what we've done in the past, and business schools are guilty, and traditional schools are absolutely guilty of doing this. And I think Andre even alluded to it earlier on. What we need is micro stuff. We need different things. And what happens with Chasing the Sun is it's about, where is your focus? It's about, how do you get teams collaborating when there's something really special here? Now, winning the World Cup is about being special. And the coach, I was quite fortunate to meet at a function, and I pulled him aside and I had a long chat with him, and the coach, a guy called Mr. Erasmus, and he said to me, winning the World Cup in all sports, particularly what he's been around in rugby in the past, was about 99%. He didn't say 95, he said 99% of the focus was on teaching the players on how to be technically competent, how to scrum properly, how to tackle properly, how to be the fittest that you could be, what moves to do, what combinations to do. In soccer, it would be whether or not to put a wall up, how do you pass, what sort of zones do you play in, all the technical stuff, and very, very little of the focus was on the other stuff. When he went into this World Cup, he completely changed that around. Not completely, because it wasn't 99%, but he went 60% on all the things that happened off the field. All the things around, how do we get SMEs, particularly around highly technical and highly focused SMEs, where the focus is always on that stuff, to think differently, to get into a collaborative environment, to get into I think I was just trying to see who was the previous speaker. I can't remember who it was. McKevin was talking about collaboration. Thembile was talking about, how do you get that young girl to have a seat at the table? That's not a technical skill. That's the big picture thinking. That's how do we get SMEs to be successful in the big stuff? All the soft skills around really getting your idea to market. So I want you to start thinking about how much of your focus has been on just the technical stuff, the product, the IP, the finance, getting finance for it, the tech, all those things, and that's where we always migrate towards. But how much is it around getting that young girl to the table? What does it take to get that? How do you have to dress? How do you collaborate? So if we can go to the next slide, because that was the example of Chasing the Sun, was actually that it's not about rugby, it's about more than that. So if we can go to the next slide, is we at Newport, we're pretty proud that we've developed a lot of stuff. We support SMEs in this process, not only the technical side, but we really support SMEs. And I'm just going to give you a minute of one of our products, and one of the things that we do, it's around a business simulation. And what we do is adults learn by experience. You don't sit on a Zoom meeting, and because after 25 minutes, or the research shows now 45 minutes, you're fast asleep. It's actually about doing stuff and actually getting into a collaborative environment. And so what we do is we take our SMEs and we put them into a really tough situation where we make them run a listed company on the New York Stock Exchange. And it doesn't have to be complicated. We actually can get it at a very junior level. And we get them to do collaboration. What we do then is we put them into scenarios where it's real life scenarios of what's going to happen in their world. How do I get a product off the market? What happens around pricing? What happens when you're under pricing pressures? How do you actually strategize what markets to go into, what markets not to go into? And because it's a competitive tool, a lot of discussion happens about what to do and some of the learnings, and you make mistakes. The nice part about it is it's absolutely a safe environment. So you can take your idea of what you want to do in a safe environment and try things. And it doesn't really matter the consequences. In real life, if an SME needs to succeed, people don't necessarily have the skills. Often you're reluctant to try things, and that might just be the downfall of that particular opportunity because you don't really have the skills or you haven't tested it in a safe environment. So I want you to think about what is the time spent on technical stuff, and have you thought about all the other things, things that you can do in a collaborative environment with other people from different environments, from different companies, from different non-competitive stuff that you can get together and collaborate. And how can you actually do that? So yeah, it's a gaming environment. It's awesome. We teach it at MBA level all the way down to in corporates. But what we found is that when I first started teaching, it was all about technical, about mergers and acquisitions and finance and technical and this and that. And what I found in the last 15 years of teaching this MBA, teaching the simulation across MBAs and even open programs, is it's actually not about that. It's about driving your collaborative environment and testing different things outside of the technical side. So feel free to ask me any questions or post anything. I can answer the questions online for you if you'd like. But thank you so much for your time, and I hand back to you, Yolanda.
Thank you, Eric. And because of time, we won't be taking questions. We're going to move straight to our next speaker, who is Mr. Sifiso Ndwandwe. He is also the CEO of Catalyst for Growth. Mr. Ndwandwe is an executive director, and he has a mandate of facilitating transparency within the development, which is the enterprise development sector, to enhance its impact in the economy. I mean, the name says it for itself, it's Catalyst for Growth. He has spent over 25 years in the enterprise development sector in SADC, including South Africa. He has held various senior roles with SEDA. He also served as a group business development manager at Monde Limited, which was at the time wholly owned by Anglo American. More recently, he served as the CEO of Mine Workers Development Agency for 10 years, up to May 2013. His experience outside South Africa includes working at CARE, which is international, in a USAID-funded project in Swaziland. Mr. Ndwandwe, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman, and thank you for those kind introduction. I wish it was 45 years, but I'll get there at some point. Thank you. Madam Chair, I think I've been asked to sort of comment on three particular areas. One is the critical catalyst for SME growth. The other aspect is to looking at how we can probably integrate our country's resources to support SMEs, and also thirdly, perhaps identifying the role that Catalyst for Growth can contribute, I think, in this effort. There's a lot that I could have said, but a lot has already been said, right from the first speaker to the most recent, around the challenges that face our small businesses, that face the players that are supporting small businesses. And I think it is important that I start with this point to say that many times we talk about small businesses and as if they are a third party that is not in the room. And I think that is often the mistake that many of these conferences and discussions make. But I'm happy that in this particular context, all the speakers and the active participants and organizers of these events are entrepreneurs by their own rights. So they talk about experiences that they have. One of the critical elements that C4G plays in the ecosystem is to convene conversations that help the players in the ecosystem to co-create solutions and to learn from the practice that each of them make in the ecosystem. We find that very, very important. I mean, almost speaker after speaker from the beginning to the most recent talks about this term that has become quite popular, ecosystem. And I think it's very important for us to understand what that means. And when you look at the SMME that is operating in a particular local environment, there are all sorts of players who are supposed to be playing different roles in supporting the growth of that SMME. Some of them actually impede, I think, the development and growth of that entrepreneur, and many of them are trying to enable and create an enabling environment for them to succeed. And I think one of our critical roles, therefore, as is to try to promote this ecosystem think and this ecosystem sort of a systemic development approach to the development of SMMEs, because not one of us can on our own actually support the growth of one successful entrepreneur. But a successful entrepreneur is the result of actions of many players in the ecosystem, from government creating an enabling environment in various aspects, to an incubator that probably provides skills, to a funder who probably provides access to funding, to somebody else, a corporate perhaps, that provides access to markets, but many other players in between that play different roles, local government and others. And I think it's important to think that way. And I think one of the critical elements in terms of growing our SMMEs, therefore, is to think in this systemic approach. And all of us realize and be humble and understand that we are not magic to the entrepreneurship journey. We are just a small piece of the puzzle, but on our own, we actually can't solve this problem. And I think we need to deal with our egos, especially some of us who are actors in this space, because sometimes we want to be so big, we want to make our voices so loud that sometimes we forget that actually it's much more complex to develop an entrepreneur. But it is actually much easier if we're coordinated and we work together and we realize that my contribution is going to only make an impact if I also open a space for someone else who has a contribution to make in another aspect of the success of this entrepreneur. So for us, that is important. But another important element for us, which is the contribution we're making, is to actually focus on monitoring and evaluation, something that I've not heard lots of, but I've heard frequent reference, and I'm happy about that, about the role of data. And in this particular case is what really drives the growth of small businesses. We will not understand that if we actually do not collect and we treat this occupation as a science. And we collect data and we try to understand the various interventions that are provided by various ecosystem players, collect data, try to understand the impact of these, and over time begin to understand what sets or combinations of various impacts or various interventions, BDS interventions, result in what type of result. And it is in collecting that over a period of time that we'll begin to understand the set of interventions that work best for a particular set of entrepreneurs. For example, how do we impact women in the ICT space? What kind of interventions work best? We won't know until we actually, when we do this thing, we collect data and we monitor and we try to understand. But more importantly, we share this information and we learn from each other. And through these conversations, then have a better understanding of how do we go back to the design of the program and use the lessons we've learned to actually design a program that has a better chance next time to actually impact or improve the results. If the result is 54% of whatever impact we're measuring, well, how can we get to 70%? How can we get 80%? I think that aspiration needs to really be very prime in our focus. And I think it comes from an environment where we work together. We understand that each one of us has a certain role to play, but more importantly, we need to talk and learn and co-create together. For us, therefore, evidence-based decision-making is quite important that we drive this. And this is basically our main message, that in the ecosystem, we need to actually make sure that that which we do is informed by evidence. And evidence means we're collecting data at every turn of our work, and we learn from that. For us, I know that time is a big issue, and I know that the chairperson is really struggling to make sure that everybody gets fitted in. So my contribution and my conclusion will maybe end at this point, to say that we have different players in the ecosystem. They have a role to play, and we must make sure that that role is recognized. But more importantly, we must make sure that we are driven at every stage by evidence, and we collect data, we monitor, and we understand, therefore, what we are doing and what really is working for the economy overall. And that for us is quite important. I'll end here, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ndwandwe. We really do appreciate your speech delivery. In this case, we won't take questions because of time. We'll just take questions after our last speaker, if time's allowed. We don't have Mr. Farouk because of emergency on his side. He couldn't join us, but we do have our speaker all the way from Netherlands. He is Cornelius Wicks. He's the director and founder and also the international partner for the World Business and Investment Forum. He will be sharing with us based on his personal experience on what types of projects really our entrepreneurs should be looking at in attracting funders and also international partnerships. Mr. Cornelius, I won't waste any time. I'll give over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can everyone see my presentation?
Yes, we can now.
Okay, great, fantastic. Good evening, everyone, and thank you, SAIEE, Madam Chairman, all the panelists and attendees. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm owner of Head Communications and also a member of the World Business Angels Investment Forum. I would like to share an investment readiness perspective from both the entrepreneurial perspective and also the investment readiness perspective, since I have done both parts of the journey. Head Communications is a decision support smart technologies company, and we're a Dutch company based in the Netherlands, and we provide data analytics solutions and smart cities and IoT and so forth. And we do collaborative projects under the triple helix with education, public sector organizations, and also commercial companies. And our idea as an entrepreneur, the first idea we came up with was a drone delivery, autonomous delivery using drones and autonomous vehicles together. And we wanted to tell a story to investors, but we also wanted to inspire our teams, and we wanted to inspire a potential launching customer. What we did is we solicited a concept with the European Space Agency through a feasibility study, which enabled us to develop this idea and get the materials and partnerships from the various companies that you see listed here to exploit this idea and exploit this opportunity to present this. I will show you a very short video that's going to show, it's only about 2 minutes, and it's going to show an entire ecosystem, autonomous delivery ecosystem, which we developed. It started out as an experiment, a collaboration between 6 universities, 6 companies, telecom companies, logistics, and the European Space Agency. And the idea was to have a multicultural environment where we can get inputs from various cultures, genders. It was also multidisciplinary. So you had technical, you had legal, business, students from all the universities, and also participants from the companies. And the idea was to develop a service example using the technologies that had communications designed in a real story where the world is coming to. The world is evolving more towards autonomous logistics. And what you will see here is this example of service that we had envisioned touches aviation, logistics, robotics, IT, fintech, smart cities, and a number of other disciplines which have academic value and which also have startup value. The biggest takeaway from here is that in developing the main product, we developed it such that there were spin-out technologies. There are other technologies in here that if legislation didn't permit us using the main innovation, which is drones. As you well know, drones are restricted in a number of different countries. We still have a number of other technologies that we can roll out into the market, such as IT products, using data compression, using cybersecurity and so forth, and everything to do with communications for autonomous vehicles and drones, and everything to make them safer. Now, while I'm not going to let this video play through its entirety, we'll invite you at the end to and a link to see the entire video, so you can look at how we presented an idea to investors to stimulate teams, stimulate commercial partners, and get the buy-in from stakeholders to enable us to get funding for a product. So that's the ideation phase for a startup who wants to bring an idea to the market, who wants to solicit a potential commercial partner, and also a supporting partner, and a number of other partners that are going to bring our services together, because also it's cost effective to bring your services together in a group to the market rather than just individually. Now, out of this came, of course, our core product being the data compression and the devices which use the data compression for smart cities, fleet management, and renewable energies. And the drone delivery project was a, let's say, a summation or a confluence of all of these different use cases. What came out of it was that, unfortunately, there were restrictions in a number of European countries which restricted us from being able to use drones beyond line of sight. So we took another side technology, the data compression, which comes out of our main development, and we use it for collaboration and critical infrastructure. We use it for work from home technologies. We use it for public safety and also economic revitalization through real-time data sharing and so forth in a post-COVID environment. So we immediately had a way to switch gears from our main development and be able to still keep our company viable. So that's something you might want to keep in mind when presenting to investors in your business plan, to look at a strategy, a backup strategy. You've got the primary case, you've got the best case, of course, which is the primary case. Then you have a middle case, and then you have a worst case scenario. Not just financially, but legislative and economically and so forth. So in the World Business Angels, we're in 115 countries, 500 representatives, and we cover a very broad perspective, a very broad spectrum of expertises and so forth. Now, when we talk about foreign direct investment, there is a big opportunity right now to gain American investment in Africa. The opportunity is enormous. What is foreign direct investment? It's when an individual or business from one nation invests in another. Now, that could be from one company to another company, or an individual to a company, or purchases a stake of over 10% of a company in Africa. There are three types of foreign direct investments. And in all of these situations, you want to position yourself that you align yourself with one of these either commercial partners, suppliers, or end users of your products. And then when gaining investment, bring them to the table to negotiate the investment as well. But try to get a commercial partner who is in the interest of your network, of your investor, or maybe get an investor that is in the interest of your product and understands your story and can relate. Why is Africa so attractive right now to foreign investors? Well, these are the reasons. The reasons are crystal clear to every investor, from from the US to different countries in Europe, that Africa is the new frontier. And I think now is the time to grasp this opportunity. And if you're a startup or an small, medium enterprise, now is the time to position and prepare yourself for this investment opportunity. So this is the story, and this is the proof. 10 billion. There are a lot of favorable factors in investing in Africa, much more than unfavorable factors. These are the benefits. And of course, there are only disadvantages, which are basically those that are related to a number of different countries, not specific to Africa. But what do American investors look for? They look for a solid business plan, a good financial plan, like I said, a primary or best case, middle case, and then a worst case scenario. And what are you going to do in those different situations? If one plan doesn't work out, you have a backup plan, but not an entire plan, just a contingency. A marketing plan, HR, how are you going to staff it? How are you going to team it? What kind of talent are you going to put in to your startup? And the structured processes using standards like ISO and other IEEE and so forth, standards, IT standards, process and production standards, quality certifications. If you're in the US, it's UL. If you're in Europe, if you want to sell to European countries and companies, CE, safety certifications, whether it's medicine, electronics, or any kind of product that has safety regulations associated with it. And investors, typically American investors, look at the entire spectrum from developing a product or a service, and they look at the business planning. And this is not just for startups, but this is also for companies that want to roll out new products. They also look at fundraising. How are you going to fundraise? Are you going to use crowdfunding? What we did in Germany is I presented a plan to a German intermediary on how to create a new and sustainable portfolio, which combines crowdfunding and business angels together. And now that intermediary is very successful because now the business angels and the crowdfunding, they help each other. They help inspire each other to invest in the company itself. How are you going to assemble teams? How are you going to do your development process? And then they look at how you're going to go to market and eventually expand. All the risks that are associated with each step and bottlenecks that are also associated with each step. Now, because of the US election results, the opportunity for Africa is even greater, because now the US is going to re-enter the Paris Accord. There's going to be a lot more openness to international trade and international investment than the current administration had. And if you align your company to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, Mr. Biden and Mrs. Harris, because the US is going to be re-entering into the Paris Accord, a lot of these sustainable development goals are important. So if you line your products to these sustainable development goals, you have a greater chance of getting public funding and also together with private funding and investment. What a lot of companies do, a lot of startups, they combine innovation subsidies together with investors. That's also new portfolio development strategies that we're coming up with in the World Business Angels Investment Forum, looking at how we can combine crowdfunding, business angels, and also VCs, venture capitalists, and also public funding together. That's very attractive. That's very successful. If you go to Horizon Europe's website, you can see many great examples of this, and I believe that this will work very well in Africa as well. These are the things that that I cannot, due to time constraints, present in this presentation. So I create a summary of about how long it takes to really get a good, solid understanding on all the important aspects of building a business and making that business attractive to American investors. We have created new and some outside the box, some best practices of award-winning methods in both Europe and America that won a number of business and technical awards in our collaboration consortiums. But these are just some of the things that preparing for American investment can really make a winning success. I am going to post the video in the chat, and also if you want some additional information, you can feel free to contact me concerning any of the things that were discussed here. Because it was compressed with time, I can address some of the questions and issues offline. And I'm also open to collaboration, as is my consortium partners. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wicks. And that was our last speaker. And because of time, we will not take any questions. But as we have promised, we will, however, post them on our website. Please be on the lookout because we want to respect your time. We're already over by 5 minutes, and we want to have you back when we have our sessions, because this was just showing you the type of partnerships we'll be having, and really the sessions that we'll be having with our collaborators. This is the time where I would really like to thank everyone who has showed up for our launch as we were launching our Entrepreneurship and Innovation chapter, where our theme really is looking into how do we grow African economic growth, and while we're still moving into the innovation platforms, together collaborating with other organizations and really other countries as well. As you have seen, we had a number of organizations that are coming from the global platforms. So this is the time where I would like to thank our president, Gourrah, for really making time to address us as we launch our chapter. I would also like to thank all the speakers who made time and really shared very informative information, which I know our attendees have really received in good heart. We also like to thank our partners. We've partnered with ESI Africa Journal. We've also partnered with Initiate, which are partners that we are working with as we grow, collaborating with other organizations and growing the chapter. Thank you to our attendees. Thank you to our speakers, and really thank you to SAIEE for allowing us the platform to change, to bring about the change that we want to see in this country and also in the world. Without wasting any of your time, please do visit our website at www.saiee.org.za. Also, connect with our speakers on LinkedIn and all the social platforms so that you can get to know more about them. And also, please remember to connect with us and become a member, because we would like to partner with you. We would like to have you as one of our members that we work with and that we build your company. And also as a collaborator, we want to work with you and grow your organization and really grow the economy. Thank you so much, and have a great evening and have a great morning if you are from another different country. Thank you.